Good morning, students. Today we will see the next part from the lesson 3 Human Reproduction. Now, in this lesson, the next part is about the menstrual cycle. The reproductive cycle in female primates is called as menstrual cycle. Menarche means the first menstruation at puberty. The menstrual cycle, it is the cycle of events starting from one menstruation till the next one. So, the interval between the two consecutive menstruations is called as menstrual cycle because the events occurring in this are the cyclic one. An average interval is of 28 or 29 days. That means after first menstruation, after 28 days, the second one will occur. One ovum is released at middle of the cycle. The cycle is of 28 days. So, at the middle of this cycle, that is on 14th day, the ovum is released from the ovary and this is called as ovulation. Now, let us see the major events of menstrual cycle. There are three main phases. The first phase is called as menstrual phase. It lasts for day 1 to 5. Lower levels of estrogen are seen during this phase. This phase is marked with breakdown of endometrial lining of the uterus and its blood vessels. As the estrogen levels are low, the endometrial lining breaks down and the menstrual flow occurs for 3 to 5 days. When the endometrial lining of the uterus breaks and the blood vessels break, the blood which is there, it comes out through the vagina. This occurs if ovum is not fertilized. So, if the fertilization does not occur, the menstruation begins. So, this is the first phase which is marked by low levels of estrogen and breakdown of the endometrium. See in this, the diagram, day 1 to day 5, here the menses has begun. That means the endometrial lining, this is the endometrium lining of the uterus, this breaks and gives out the blood. Now, in this you can see that during this time the estrogen levels are low. So, this is characterized by low estrogen levels and the breaking of the endometrium day 1 to 5. This is first phase. Now, see the next phase, that is follicular or proliferative phase. This is marked from day 6 to 14. In this phase, the estrogen levels start increasing. Primary follicle grows and becomes fully mature Graafian follicle. Endometrium regenerates through proliferation and levels of LH and FSH are at peak on day 14. Ovulation occurs because of the LS surge which causes rupture of the Graafian follicle and the ovum is released during this phase. So, this is from day 6 to 14. You can see here the regeneration of the endometrium occurs through the proliferation and hence the phase is called as proliferative phase. Next, the estrogen levels you can see from day 6 to day 14, the estrogen levels are increasing, and on the 14th day, peak is seen in the estrogen level. Again, about the follicle, you can see the primary follicle is developing, it is growing, and it is getting converted into a mature Graafian follicle which is bigger in size. Same way, the LH and FSH levels are at its peak, and because of this highest level of the LH, it is called as LH surge. And because of that, the Graafian follicle, this Graafian follicle which is matured, it ruptures and releases the egg. This is called as ovulation. So this phase, as the follicle grows, this is follicular phase, and as the endometrium regenerates through the proliferation, this is called as proliferative phase. So by 6 to 14 days, the proliferative or follicular phase is there. It is marked by higher level of estrogen, formation of Graafian follicle, LH surge, which causes the rupture of the Graafian follicle and the release of the ovum, that is called as ovulation. The third phase is called as luteal or secretory phase, which begins from day 15 up to 28th day. The remaining parts of the Graafian follicle transform into corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum secretes large amount of progesterone for maintenance of endometrium for implantation of fertilized ovum. If fertilization does not occur, corpus luteum degenerates, disintegration of endometrium occurs, and it leads to menstruation, marking the new cycle. So, in the third phase, from day 15 after the ovulation, day 15 to day 28. So, in this you can see, when this Graafian follicle is ruptured, ovum is released. This is the remaining part of the Graafian follicle after the release of the egg or ovum. This develops as corpus luteum, and this starts secreting progesterone. So you can see the level of progesterone after this formation of corpus luteum is increasing. So this is important. This higher level of progesterones are required for higher level of this progesterone are required for maintaining the endometrium, because the implantation of the embryo, or you can say the zygote, will take place on the endometrial lining, so that it has to be prepared for the implantation. But if the fertilization does not occur, then this corpus luteum degenerates. It becomes smaller and smaller if fertilization does not occur. And then the disintegration of this endometrium, which has generated well, it occurs, and again the next menstrual cycle starts. So these are the three important phases of the menstrual cycle, which are related with the levels of estrogen, levels of LH and FSH, and development of the follicle, rupture of the follicle and ovulation, development of corpus luteum, and if fertilization does not occur, the endometrium disintegrates, leading to the next menstrual cycle. Now, in a female, this occurs only up to around the age of 50. It is not continuous, it is only up to 50 years of age, and after that the menstrual cycle ceases, stops, and this is called as menopause. After that, the next step is fertilization and implantation. Fertilization is nothing but the fusion of a sperm with an ovum. The sperm comes in contact with zona pellucida. Zona pellucida, as we have seen earlier, it is the covering which is there on the ovum. So, the sperm comes in contact with the outer covering of the egg, that is zona pellucida. The change in the membrane blocks entry of other sperms. When one sperm enters the ovum, then the changes occur in the membrane, and these changes don't allow the other sperms to enter inside. Thus, the entry of other sperms is blocked. Now, how this sperm can enter into the ovum? So, for that, the secretions of acrosome we have seen in the structure of sperm. The acrosome is a cap-like portion at the tip. It secretes enzymes which help for the digestion of the egg membrane, and the sperm can enter inside. So, the secretions of acrosome help the sperm to enter cytoplasm of ovule. In that also, only the head of the sperm, which contains the nucleus, only that part enters the cytoplasm of the ovule, not the middle piece and the tail. When the sperm enters the cytoplasm of the ovum, after that the second meiotic division of the secondary oocyte occurs, and then it produces second polar body and haploid ovum. Till now, the second meiotic division was not done. So, after the entry of the sperm into the cytoplasm, after that this is induced. Now, this division is again unequal, which produces a small polar body, second polar body, and haploid ovum. Haploid nucleus of the sperm and that of the ovum fuse together to form diploid zygote. So, thus the zygote is formed. Now, all these fertilization steps are occurring in the fallopian tube. The sex of the baby is decided at zygote formation. We know that a father or a male has XY genetic constitution and a mother or a female has XX. So, the sperms produced by the male will be of two types, X and Y. 50% sperms will be of X type and 50% will be of Y type. But a female will produce only one type of egg. All the eggs will be of one type, that is X. When there are combinations occur, when X type of sperm fertilizes the X ovum, then the baby will be a daughter because the genetic constitution is XX. But when the Y type of sperm fertilizes X type of ovum, then the genetic constitution will be XY and it will be a baby boy or a son. So, there are 50-50% chances that the baby can be a daughter or son, and this depends on the type of sperm which is taking part in the fertilization. It is not dependent on the mother. It is dependent only on the sperm type which is taking part in the fertilization. Now, once the zygote has formed, this zygote undergoes cleavage. Cleavage is nothing but the mitotic divisions. As the zygote moves through isthmus of oviduct, it undergoes mitotic divisions. When it starts moving from the isthmus part of the oviduct towards the uterus, that time it undergoes mitotic divisions and forms 2 daughter cells, then 4 daughter cells, 8 and 16 daughter cells. All these cells are now called as blastomeres. Embryo with 8 to 16 blastomeres is called as morula. Morula divides and transforms into a structure called as blastocyst. The outer layer of blastomeres is called trophoblast. In this blastocyst, the cells are arranged in 2 layers. The outer layer is called as trophoblast and the inner group of cells is called inner cell mass. Now this trophoblast, that is the cells of the outer layer, these trophoblast, it helps for the attachment to endometrial wall. Whereas the inner cell mass, it differentiates into embryo. Uterine wall covers the blastocyst and it becomes embedded in endometrium. And this is called as implantation. This implantation that leads to pregnancy. So the uterine wall, it overlaps from both the sides when the trophoblast attaches to the endometrium. The uterine wall, the endometrial wall, it covers the blastocyst from both the sides as if it is holding it, and thus it becomes embedded in the endometrium, and this process is called as implantation. Once the implantation occurs, the next step is placenta formation. Finger-like projections on trophoblast are called as chorionic villi. Uterine tissue and chorionic villi become interdigitated with each other and jointly form a structural and functional unit between developing embryo and maternal body, and this structure is called as placenta. Umbilical cord helps in transport of substances to and from the embryo. Now here both trophoblast cells and the chorionic villi, chorionic villi, they join with the uterine tissue. Interdigitated means they join in a close association and form placenta. Now the role of the placenta is very important. It facilitates supply of oxygen and nutrients to embryo. Secondly, it removes carbon dioxide and waste materials produced by embryo. Not only this, but it also acts as endocrine gland and produces hormones like HCG, that is human chorionic gonadotropin, HPL, human placental lactogen, estrogen, progestogen, etc. All these hormones are important for maintaining and pregnancy and for the embryonic development. Inner cell mass, as we have seen, it differentiates and two layers are formed. The outer layer is called as ectoderm and the inner layer is called endoderm. A third layer develops in between, that is called as mesoderm. Like that, three germinal layers are formed and these three layers give rise to all the tissues and organs of the individual body or the embryo. Now, the embryonic development, as we know that the gestation period for a human baby is 9 months. Now, in this, how the development of embryo occurs during different months, that is discussed here. After 1 month, heart is formed. By the end of second month, limbs and digits develop. By the end of 12 weeks, that is first trimester, most of the major organ systems are formed. During 5th month, first movements of fetus are felt by the mother and appearance of hair are seen on head. By end of 24 weeks, that is second trimester, eyelids separate and eyelashes are formed. By the end of 9 months, fetus is fully developed and ready for delivery. So, this way the embryonic development is completed in 9 months and now the fetus is fully developed and ready for the delivery. The delivery of fetus is called parturition. In simple words, it is childbirth. So, fully matured fetus, it is delivered from the uterus, that is called as parturition. Now, how this occurs? It is induced by neuroendocrine mechanism. Both the systems, nervous system and the endocrine system, are involved for this parturition. Signals develop from fetus and placenta. When the fetus is fully developed, the fetus and placenta give the signals for the parturition. Mild uterine contractions start and these are called as fetal ejection reflex. When these mild uterine contractions begin, the release of oxytocin occurs and more release of oxytocin causes stronger uterine contractions, leading to release of more oxytocin. So, the first mild uterine contractions are there, which causes the release of oxytocin. That oxytocin causes stronger uterine contractions and these stronger uterine contractions cause more release of oxytocin. Thus, stronger and stronger contractions expel the baby out of uterus through birth canal. So, this is nothing but the parturition. The next point is lactation. Earlier, we have seen the structure of mammary glands. Now, these mammary glands start producing milk after the parturition. Colostrum is the milk produced in the initial few days of lactation. This is very important because it contains several antibodies which are essential for developing resistance for the newborn baby. In the newborn baby, the resistance will be developed by these antibodies, and these antibodies are present in the colostrum. That is why breastfeeding is very important for the small babies. So with this we have completed this lesson number 3. In next video